So the answer is we need to change 3 of these procedures. We need to change crawl web, we need to change add to index, and we need to change lookup. We don't need to change get all links at all. That we can keep exactly the same as it was. It just returns the list of links. It doesn't depend on the index. We don't need to change add page to index. This is a little more surprising since it depends on the index, but because of the way we wrote add page to index, it calls add to index. So it doesn't depend how we actually represent the index. It's going to go through all the words, add them to the index by calling add to index. So we don't actually need to change that code. We do need to change the other 2. So let's start with crawl web and figure out what we need to do to change this to use a dictionary. And the change is actually going to be really small, right? The index is here. In the old version, we initialize index to a list, to the empty list. And all we do with index is pass it in to add page to index. So to change that to use a dictionary, all we need to do is change the square brackets to be curly brackets. So now instead of starting with an empty list, we're going to start with an empty dictionary. So that's the only change we need to make to crawl web. The change to add index is going to be a little more complicated. And we can see from the code to crawl web, what happens with each page was we call add to index, passing in the index, which is now a dictionary. Let's look at add page to index. I claimed that we didn't need to change that. Here's the code for add page to index. And it takes the index, it goes through the words, it adds each word to the index. We can do this just the same whether index was a list or a dictionary. We don't need to change add page to index. We are going to need to change add to index. So we are going to need to change the code to add to index. And let's try to figure out how. So before we had add to index that takes an index, a keyword, and a URL. We'll still take the same parameters. But what we had to do when it was a list was go through all the entries in the index, check for each one if it matches the keyword we're looking for. If we find that it does, then we add the URL. If we get to the end without finding it, then we append a new entry, which is the keyword, with a list of URLs containing just the first URL. So let's figure out how to change this to work with the hash table index. So the great thing about the hash table is we don't need to loop through anything now. We know exactly where it is from the hash table. With the dictionary, the built-in in operation gives us that. So instead of looping, now we can check right away if the keyword is in the index. So what's going to happen if we found the keyword in the index, that means that we can look it up. This will look up in the dictionary the entry that corresponds to the index. That's going to be the list of URLs that we have. And so all we need to do now is append to that entry the new URL. If it's not in the index already, well, we need to do something different. What we did before was we added a new element to the index list using append. We don't want to do that now. We want to add a new key value pair to the dictionary. So we're going to do that by using the assignment. And the entry that we're adding is the list containing just this URL. So we can delete everything else here, add the new entry to the keyword. So this is a lot simpler. We have less code, and it's going to run a lot faster. We don't have to loop through anything. Because of the hash table, we can right away look up whether the keyword is in the index. We can find if it is what the value is by using the dictionary lookup, and we can append the new URL to the list of URLs associated with that keyword. If it's not found, we can create a new entry using the dictionary syntax like this that contains just that URL. So now we've got a much simpler way to add to index. I hope you understand this. If you do, you should be able to define lookup yourself.